Well, with season 2 of Oshi No Ko having ended recently, especially with that post-credit scene at the end of the finale, I figured now would be a perfect time to talk about season 3 and what content to expect from it. For starters, I do believe the anime will continue to be one core, meaning that season 3 will likely end in the middle of an arc this time. Fortunately, there is a decent stopping point during a certain part of that arc. However, I do think they will have to add at least one episode to reach that mark. You see, the first 2 seasons contain 40 chapters each. While the post-credit scene with Hikaru takes place in chapter 109, season 2 really does conclude at the end of chapter 80, meaning season 3 would start on chapter 81 and theoretically end on chapter 120. Yet, I believe chapter 123 would actually be a much better point to end the season. Of course, I'll explain why that is later in the video. So assuming there will be an extra episode, season 3 will be 14 episodes, and 43 chapters in total. Each episode is usually about 3 chapters worth of content, which means for this season, one chapter will likely be split in half over 2 episodes, or we just get a 4 chapter episode. I know it probably sounds a bit confusing, but it'll make more sense when I go through the episodes. As for how it would play out, season 2 finished at the end of chapter 80, where Ruby wishes for Aqua to get revenge on the one behind Ai and Goro's death. There was a half-year time skip before the first episode would begin, with chapter 81. It's at the start of the episode where Memcho does a quick little recap and update on what happened with the main cast during those 6 months. Bikomachi's popularity skyrocketed thanks to Ruby too. Both Akane and Aqua's popularity have risen greatly as well. Kana meanwhile is still struggling over Aqua avoiding her now that he's seriously dating Akane. It's even affecting her performance in Bikomachi. After Memcho talks to Kana about this in chapter 82, she goes to have a chat with Aqua, which takes place in chapter 83. Since Aqua is tired after having to work all day, Memcho brings Aqua over to her place. The main topic of this chat is mainly about Kana, and Aqua revealing it's actually him, who's obsessed with Kana and her safety. With Kana's growing popularity, her being seen with the boy could escalate into her being killed like Ai, which Aqua doesn't want to happen. Memcho understanding Aqua here pretty much wraps up the subplot. However, I think the episode will actually continue into chapter 84 and begin the mainstay arc. I covered this arc fully in a separate video, but to be brief, it's a Ruby-centric arc where we get to see her descent into darkness that was foreshadowed at the end of season 2. Near the end of this episode is where we'll see Ruby appear on the show Dig Deep, and Aqua's reaction to it, setting up the cliffhanger they like to do at the end of the episodes. Then they'll start episode 2 back at the start of chapter 84, where we learn about the show Dig Deep, which Aqua appears regularly on, and we get to see how Ruby managed to convince Kaburagi to appear on the same show too, and more importantly, learns that she is in contact with Ichigo, the former president of Strawberry Productions. This is like the first time we will see him in the anime, since the first episode too, and it's here we learn Ruby wants Ichigo to tell her information about people close to Ai. However, his condition is for Ruby to become much more popular, which leads to him being the one advising Ruby to go on Dig Deep and how to stand out. Due to Ruby wanting to manipulate the assistant director, we get introduced to Shun Yoshizumi and his role as the assistant director. Some of this may be cut if there are time constraints, but we will see that they're planning to interview cosplayers, as I do believe this episode will end with Shun asking Ruby if she does any cosplay. This allows episode 3 to start with a completely different scene, as chapter 87 begins with Aqua walking Akane home in the rain. From there we see Ruby convince Minami to join the Tokyo Blade cosplay, and get introduced to Shun's sister Mimi, who's a VTuber. The middle of the episode will be where the main problem of the arc is brought up, where it's revealed the director hasn't gotten permission to do the Tokyo Blade cosplay, and everyone is forced to quickly make changes. We get the interview day, including the introduction of Maya, and then the episode ending with her posting the tweet about her complaints at the end of chapter 89. Episode 4 will contain chapters 90 to 92, showcasing the fallout of the tweet. Maya won't take it down, and after the director decides to take responsibility, Shun is certain he'll be fired before getting a proposal from Ruby. This proposal leads to a special version of the Dig Deep show hosted by Ruby, where they investigate the chain of events leading to the controversy, and ultimately results in the director apologizing to Maya by doing his own cosplay. Seeing that the director understands the difficulty of cosplay, Maya takes down her tweet. However, the episode will end with Aqua asking Ruby if she set this whole thing up. Episode 5 will then cover chapters 93 to 95, with Ruby revealing her plan to Aqua at the start. She started the whole controversy on purpose, in order to win over the director. From there, Ruby's popularity grew even faster, even netting her the new Idol award. Her presence alone has carried Bikomachi to nearly 1 million subscribers. Aqua does end up learning that Ruby has been getting advice from Ichigo. It turns out Ichigo wants to kill the guy who made Ai suffer too, and this ultimately leads to Aqua realizing his mistake. Seijiro Urahara is not his father, and the real one is still out there. Aqua ends up having a mental breakdown, and the episode will end with Aqua crying alone in the rain after accidentally lashing out at Kana. This allows episode 6 to adapt chapters 96 to 98, making for a peak episode. After all, this is where Akane first learns about Aqua's father, Hikaru Kamiki, and attempts to track him down herself before nearly getting killed. Aqua does save Akane, but also breaks up with her there for her own safety. The episode will end with Aqua reawakening his double black Sharingan, as he vows to get revenge on Hikaru. Episode 7 will begin setting up the Scandal arc, as it will adapt chapters 99 to 101. Kana comes to realize she doesn't want to be in Ruby's shadow forever, and ends up meeting Shima, who is a popular director, but also much older than her. Kana is desperate to get a good acting job, and ends up going over to his place for one night. Nothing actually happens between them, but a reporter ends up capturing Kana leaving his place, ending the episode with that cliffhanger. Episode 8, which will cover chapter 102 to 105, begins with a little introspection on the low life of idols, and how the effects of scandals have changed in modern times, which is quite relevant to the plot, but some of it will have to be cut for this episode. Miyako ends up getting a message from the reporter who captured Kana in 4K, and even confronted Kana herself. She was so shocked that she ran away. Of course, Kana doesn't stay frightened for long, as she doesn't care what others think of her, and returns to Bikomachi. I do think some of Miyako's lines will be cut along with some of Aqua's conversation with the reporter. All these cuts will allow for the episode to end with a cliffhanger at the end of chapter 105, where the truth about Aqua and Ruby is revealed to the public. This means episode 9 will cover chapters 106 to 108, showing Ruby's confrontation with Aqua, Kana and Aqua's meeting, where Kana fumbles completely, and then after Aqua reveals to Ichigo he can finally enact his plan to get revenge, the episode will end with the Kotana looking at the script for the 15-year live film. As for episode 10, the episode will actually begin by introducing Yura, and we get to see the entire context behind the post-credits scene from season 2. The rest of the episode will include Kotana's flashback with Ai, Aqua presenting the movie to Kaburagi, the cast reveal, and eventually ending with a focus on Kotana and Kaburagi for the last quarter of the episode. However, I also wouldn't be surprised if they switch things around for Hikaru's scene to be the cliffhanger instead. I don't think it affects the timeline that much, since Yura's disappearance is only acknowledged in chapter 112, which will be adapted at the start of episode 11, along with Kana graduating high school. After Kotana meets with Ruby, he has her audition for the main role, which eventually leads to Frill hosting an interpersonal competition for the main role too, including Akane. The episode will then end midway through the competition, right before Ruby performs. Episode 12 begins with Ruby's performance, followed by Akane, who quickly realizes that the role they're auditioning for is Oshi No. Even Frill has noticed that Aqua is trying to get revenge through this film. Since everything depends on how Ai's role is performed, Ruby tries her hardest to win the role and help get revenge, leading Akane to concede due to the awkwardness. Aqua finally meets with Akane again, and she vows to stop his plan. Directly after that, we'll see Kana's announcement that she's quitting Bikomachi, followed by her chat with Aqua at the restaurant. The episode will then end with Kaburagi settling on Ruby for the role of Ai. Episode 13, which is the second to last episode, begins with Aqua speaking with the Crow Girl, before we see Ruby struggling with the script. Marina Tendoji, the mother of Serena, is also introduced here as part of an advertising agency, and Aqua ends up meeting her. He learns that she actually has other children, and seems to have completely forgotten about Serena. Meanwhile, it's clear Ruby's really struggling with the part where Ai realized her mother didn't really care for her either. Ruby is really trying to believe that her parents will definitely love their children, but it continues eating away at her along with her insane daily schedule, which is jam-packed. Ruby tries watching Kana's rehearsal for a movie directed by Shima, and is advised to understand what's inside her. However, the Serena inside her is certain that Marina doesn't love her. It's here where the episode ends, with a flashback of Serena and Marina, leading Ruby to realize that Marina could be lying about saying she loved her. Then finally, we're at the season finale, episode 14, which covers chapter 121 to 123. The start of the episode is really good build-up, as we see Ruby did try to meet with Marina, and how Marina moved on from Serena. As Ruby begins breaking down, Aqua appears to come for her, which ultimately leads to Aqua revealing that he's Goro after learning Ruby is Serena. Of course, this allows Ruby to completely unload her feelings onto Aqua, but he's able to get Ruby to understand that she can live without revenge and live her own life. We see the Crow Girl explain how this was the bad idea, since it would have been better for Aqua's plan if Ruby hated him. Then the season will end with Ruby remembering that Goro said he'd marry her when she turned 16, and that she's 16 now. Yeah, I know, end of the season with Aqua x Ruby, potential foreshadowing could be controversial, but I think this perfectly wraps up the Ruby subplot of her struggle with revenge and her past. The next chapter would start a little Miyako subplot, which continues for another chapter. Then ending the season earlier is just awkward as well. So ending on chapter 123 really does allow the finale to be filled with amazing content, especially with Anka and Ruby learning their true identities. But yeah, let me know what you all think about the potential episodes, or if you would change anything. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe. I got some more Oshi No Ko content here too that you can check out. Peace.